Hi everyone, this is Mr. Neil Wrighter, also known as the Wax Whisperer. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. This is of a patient who attended with a fully blocked right ear. They previously attended 4 years ago and they woke up this morning feeling that they couldn't hear at all from this right ear. They had been using some drops, and what the drops had done is only serve to soften the wax, and sometimes if you overdose the ear with earwax drops, whether it be olive oil or sodium bicarbonate or hydrogen peroxide drops, the wax actually absorbs the drops and it expands and swells and it creates more of a blockage in your ear. So it can be counterproductive if you overuse drops. Now, the reason for the title of the video is because I was quite literally at the edge of my seat. In fact, when I was removing the wax from the anterior recess, which you'll see in a moment, on occasions I had to stand up off my chair, my clinical chair, just to get the angle right, because the patient's got a very, very narrow medial part of the ear canal. So when we say medial, we mean towards the eardrum further away. And about 0.5 centimetre away from the eardrum, we have a natural narrowing called the isthmus, and then the ear canal protrudes back outwards again, and that creates two recesses. One called the anterior recess, so it's like a almost like a cave, or I think people have used other names on the videos to describe them. I'm just trying to remember what they were. A crevice, I think someone referred it to as. To the right, so that's the anterior recess, and one to the base on the floor of the ear canal, that's known as the inferior recess. So that's like a basin, and we're approaching there now. So I had to put some more drops in, ironically, just to bind this wax together because it was really soft and mushy. And this is the isthmus. You can see just how narrow it is, and I'm using a standard Zollner suction probe there, and there was no space whatsoever for me to insert that further into the ear, because if I did, it would touch the side of the ear canal. That gives you an idea of how narrow this ear is. And a standard Zollner suction probe, the width of it is around 2.2 millimetres. So instead, I'm using a fine end suction probe here, a fine end gauge, or some people call it a gauge in the UK. It's going to be debates, I'm sure, in the comments now. But a fine end suction probe, so we can stay away from any debacle, whether it's gauge or gauge, if I just call it a fine end suction probe. And this is now stuck in the anterior recess, and you can see the ear canal curls to the right. So this is the isthmus, the narrowing where the tip of the suction probe is, and you'll get a real sense of how prominent and how large this recess is. So in other words, to the right side of the ear canal, there's a hidden cave there, and the wax is lodged in there. And the problem is, this wax it's very sticky and mushy. Normally, if the wax is quite loose and dry, when you approach it with a suction probe, it will just come away from the eardrum and come away from the anterior recess, and you can be able to suction it out quite easily. But this is stuck. Imagine this wax being like cement, and the builders or plaster, and they're putting it on the wall. It's stuck. It's literally plastered on the eardrum and embedded in the anterior recess. And because there's so limited space, it's really, really tricky to remove. You can see I got a bit close there to the anterior canal wall, and at all times I want to avoid contact with the canal wall. So the outer third of the ear canal, that's cartilaginous. So that's roughly the first centimetre of the ear canal. The cartilaginous portion of the ear is semi-flexible. It is sensitive, but you can apply some pressure onto it. There's a layer of skin about a millimetre in thickness. It's quite a thick layer of skin. The inner 2/3, it's literally skin on bone. Now, I've just gone back in with the full Zollner suction probe because the fine end just wasn't powerful enough. You can just see how careful I had to be there, because one slight misjudgment, either to the left or to the right, we're talking 0.5 millimetre there, I would have made contact with the bony part of the ear canal. It would be very uncomfortable for the patient, and that's because the inner 2/3 of the ear canal, so the latter 2 centimetres, if you like, because the average ear canal, approximately about 3 centimetres, technically it's 2.6, but if you just round it off to 3 centimetres, it's a thin layer of skin less than 0.1 millimeter thickness, so 1/10, it could be even less than that, than the thickness of the skin that lines the outer third. And that's directly on the bone. So there's no fatty tissue there, no muscle, it's literally skin on bone. And you can just see how careful we need to be. And I put drops in on several occasions. I tried both olive oil drops and sodium bicarbonate drops. And you can see we've cleared everything else, all the blockage, because this wax was occluding right from the entrance all the way to the eardrum. And I think at this stage I was actually off my seat. The patient had their head tilted slightly, so I still had the oil in there. So to keep the oil in the ear whilst suctioning, I just had asked the patient to tilt their head just slightly over so the oil didn't drip out. And then I had to get the view and the position, I had to get off my seat slightly, so I can get into this anterior recess. Now in a moment you will see that I'm going to bend the tip of the fine end suction probe so I can get better access. We can just about see the eardrum, the bottom left corner, so around 7-8 o'clock you can see the blue tinge in the distance. So that's the patient's eardrum. And what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to get a suction grip and peel this away, move the plug away. So whether it's from the bottom now, more at the top, and I'm just jiggling it slightly or wriggling it. I think I'll just put some more drops in. Think about this last piece of wax almost being like chewing gum. And someone's really pushed it, well, if it's stuck on the bottom of your shoe or under the desk. I remember at school when we used to have those desks where you used to lift the lid and you can put all your bits inside. I forgot what they're called, but quite often it brings back memories. Kids used to, from the previous class lecture, used to put their chewing gum underneath the table and really apply pressure onto it. And imagine this, someone's got chewing gum, put it onto the eardrum, really impacted it. That's what we're dealing with at the moment. So I think this time I used some sodium bicarbonate drops because I was using olive oil and I thought, let's just see if sodium bicarbonate has any better effect. And it didn't, unfortunately, but nonetheless, the drops are providing some lubrication. And you may now be able to see the bend on the suction probe. It's just a very mild bend that I've put on there, but it curves over to the right, so we can avoid making contact with the anterior canal wall. On a couple of occasions before I was quite close to it, so to give myself a bit more manoeuvrability and freedom of movement, I just bent it, just curled it just at the tip, probably about 3 or 4 millimeters away. See, I'm very close there as well, but thankfully I've avoided contact. Now we can see the top part of the hammer bone. So at the top you can see this circular piece of bone protruding outwards. That forms part of the hammer bone, and it's got several names. It's either the lateral process or the short process of the malleus. So that's revealed itself. Again, I'm getting a suction grip, and I'm trying to just pull this wax plug away, but it's stuck. So it's really, really frustrating because technically I'm able to get the suction probe in the right position. And that was quite complex, and you just then hope you've done all the hard work in your mind. You've got the view, you've got the suction probe into that narrow region, past the anterior recess, and you just then hope that the wax sticks to the end of the suction probe. You can gently bring it away. And once again, just entering the ear. We just want to avoid those hairs at the entrance because they can sometimes grease the tip of the suction probe and blur the image slightly. Again, the last 5 minutes of the procedure, I was off the chair all the times. You can probably see that bend now. You can see a better perspective of it on the suction tip. So I've got a bit of a suction grip now, and it is moving slightly. I'm just going to continue jiggling it and wiggling it, trying to loosen it off the anterior recess wall and off the eardrum. Now there's a few hairs there matted, so it makes me wonder whether the patient was also in the past using some cotton buds and pushed some of these hairs. Or alternatively, they trim the hairs at the entrance of the ears. These hairs have flown into the ear and matted itself against the wax. I think in a moment it's going to come loose, and you'll be quite surprised by the size of it. And it took the patient by surprise was also when I played the video back to him. So there we go, we've got some movement now. See it up at the base of the canal wall, it's loosened there. And I'm trying to bring the plug right to left because it's stuck on the right hand side in the recess. I'm trying to bring it away and I'm bringing it up at the same time out of the inferior recess. So we have to work in two ways, right to left and bottom up. And you can just see how bendy that canal wall is. You can't actually see the whole interior recess, that's that bendy. That's that final plug that I removed. I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.